Hey guys, welcome to lesson 8. I'm going to create a new Java project for this. And then go to the source and create a new class. And I'm going to call it lesson 8. Don't forget to check your public static void main string args and click finish. So lesson 8 is all about Boolean types. So while we're putting in our beginning code, so put in your author name, and we're going to put in the date, so September 17th, and then I'm also going to put in lesson 8 Boolean. Okay, so a Boolean is basically going to come back with an answer of either true or false. So this is kind of like doing computer-style binary. So if you put in a test, it's either going to come back that the test rang true or the test is false. So there's a couple different ways for us to run these tests. So I'm going to come down and organize my brackets and delete this extra code. And then we're going to put some things in here just to run some tests on this. So int x equals 37. And y equals 49, and z equals 51. So you can name these whatever you would like them to be. They're just integers. There's no need to worry about that. So the types that we have learned about before are ints, which are integers, doubles, which are decimals, and string, which is our words. Now we're going to introduce to you a new type, which is called Boolean. So Boolean is either going to bring back true or false. So come on down to that next line 15, and we're going to set up Boolean B. And you can name that whatever you like. Variables can be named whatever. So if you wanted to call it Boolean balloon, take balloon with 2 O's. Not happy right now because you haven't said equal to anything. Okay, so we're going to run a test here and set our response to balloon. So our test is going to be if x is less than y. Okay, so let's look at x and y. X is 37, y is 49. So if we're testing balloon to be x is less than y, it should bring back true. So let's do system out print line and just print balloon. And then run your test, and it comes back true. So our test is correct. Let's see if x is greater than y. False, it is not. Now if we change it back to x is less than 49, so we're saying 37 is less than 49, we could also say equal to. So now we're testing to see if x is less than or equal to y. So it comes back true because while it's not equal to, it is less than y. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a comment or a remark here at the end of the line. So we can test if less than, greater than, or less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Now, if you can't remember your less than and greater than, just think of the less than as being kind of a tilted L. That's kind of what it looks like. So that's how you know it's less than. All right, so I'm actually going to come in and I'm going to comment out that line, and then I'm going to make a new one. So we're going to call this next one Boolean balloon. We can use the same one because as long as this one's commented out, it's not going to throw a fit. All right, so let's put in something that we know to be true. So I'm going to say that y is greater than or equal to x, because it is. Now we're going to also test if something is false. So we will say and y equals z. Enter parenthesis and run your program. All right. It has done something angry. So let's take a look at our line. So it does not like this equals right here. So whenever you're testing something for a Boolean, you cannot use equals because we use equals everywhere in Java. So we initialize, we declare with it, right? We actually set all of our variables equal to stuff. So when you are running a Boolean operator like this one, you'd say equals equals. All right, let's try it again. It's still angry because and is not actually an operator. So delete the and. I'm going to actually delete the space. For Java, whenever you're trying to just test two things with and, you want two ampersands right next to each other. So right now, we are going to see if y is greater than or equal to x, which it is, and y is equal to z. So if both of those are true, then it will return true. If one of these is not true, it will return false, which it does. Okay, so what could we do to this line to make it return a true? So y is greater than or equal to x, that is true. And this has to be true. So y is not equal to z, y is less than or equal to z. You don't even need the equal since it's not equal to z. So now, if y is greater than x and y is less than z, we will return a true, which we do. There's another operator that we can look at that's called not. So your exclamation point in Java code and basically all electronics is going to be a not. So basically whatever the result of this is, that exclamation point changes it. So this comes out true, and now you've added a not to the beginning of it. So it's not true anymore. So whenever we run this program, it's going to reply with false. You can also make this work for us. So take off that exclamation point. And remember we had that y and z were equal. So now put the not in front of the equal sign. So now we're testing if y is greater than or equal to x and y is not equal to z. And then you run it, which is now true. So I'm going to come out here and I'm going to make a remark. So, and then equals equals. All right, let's see. Test equality. And the exclamation is not. Okay, so I'm going to comment out this line. We have one more thing to do. So we're going to do Boolean equals. And that time we used and. This time we're going to test for. So we want to see if y is greater than x or x is greater than y. Right? So one of these has to be true unless they're equal, which they're not. So now or is not actually going to work. So just like and, we have to come up with a different way of saying this because it's not going to be recognizable in Java. So if you look on your keyboard, above your enter button is a straight up and down line. That is your or. So do shift that button twice. Now we're testing or. So if y is greater than x, if that is true, it's going to return with true. Or if x is greater than y, it's going to come back with true. So it did. Now if we test this around and say y is greater than x, which is true, you say y is less than x, or x is greater than y, it's going to return with false because neither one of those arguments are true. Does that make sense? So I'm going to come out to the side and make a remark about our little up and down lines here for or. All right, so I'm going to comment this line out also. The last thing we're really going to talk about here is kind of order of operations with Booleans here. So Boolean, And then I'm not even going to look at the ints right now. I'm just going to put in true or false and false. So this statement here kind of depends on how you read it. If we did true or false, it would come back with true. It's not true and false, so it would come back with false. But if we did false and false, that would be false, right? If we did true or false, the answer would be true. So either way, one way we're going to get true, one way we're going to get false. So go ahead and run this. The answer is true. So the only way you can really do that is do and first, then or. So order of operations, and comes before or. So if you take a look in your book on page 38, down here we have some operator precedence. So not is the highest precedence, equals is the next highest, not equals is third highest, then or. So that is the order in which you will do things. So you can actually look, there's a couple of example problems here in your book and a couple more examples with a little bit hierarchy stuff going on, I guess. But on Moodle, you have something that is called the truth table. So a truth table is basically just an organization of your answers for different situations. So like right now we have a truth table of A and B. We have A and B is going to be what we're going to fill in. So if you look, A and B, these are the 4 different things you could have. So if you could have both of them be false, you could have A false, B true, A true, B false, A true, and B true. So these are just 4 different setups. There's different situations. So if we're looking at and, then both of them have to be true. So both of them are false. So A is false and B is false. The answer is false. If A is false and B is true, they're not both true, so it's false. Again, for true and false, A is true, but B is false. So the answer is false. If A is true and B is true, then it's true. All right? So like if we said that A was, it's raining outside, and B is, I brought an umbrella. So if it's not raining, I didn't bring an umbrella, the whole statement's false. All right, so if you look down, we're going to look at or. So one of the values has to be true. Neither A or B is true in this first one, so the answer is false. But if A is false and B is true, then your answer is true because one or the other has to be true. For the next one, A is true, B is false, so it's true. If they're both true, obviously it's true. So go ahead and save that. Turn in your truth table on Moodle, turn in the program that we wrote on Moodle, and then you guys have some questions. There's not a project for lesson 8, but just questions.